If you look carefully at this week's Torah portion, you'll see something interesting. Moshe's name does not appear throughout the Parsha. The reason, the sages explain, is that in next week's Torah portion, after the sin of the golden calf, God tells Moshe that he's going to destroy the Jewish people. And Moshe begs him not to. And he says, God, if you're going to, then erase my name from your book. Wipe my name out from the Torah. Now, because Moshe was such an incredibly righteous person, even though he uttered those words conditionally, they had to come true in some sense. And so God wiped his name out, not from the entire Torah, but from one book. But here's where it gets interesting. At the end of next week's Torah portion, when Moshe comes down from the mountain with the second tablets, his face is glowing, rays of light are projecting from it. I saw beautiful measures that explains the source of those rays of light. After the Torah was written, God took the leftover ink and he dabbed it on Moshe's forehead, and that's what created the light. But why was there leftover ink? Wouldn't God have known exactly how much ink to create or allot for the writing of the Torah? And so this Medrash explains that the reason for the leftover ink is that there were those places in this week's Torah portion where Moshe's name was supposed to have been written. But once it was erased, it left over some ink. And so what seemed like a punishment or a consequence, Moshe having his name wiped out from this week's portion, ended up being an incredible blessing because it resulted instead in the rays of light, a lifelong glow emanating from his face, a glow of inspiration. And so perhaps we can learn from this that there are times when we could accomplish as much or maybe even more when we're not around, when we're not in the room, than when we are. Our footprints can be all over an event, even if we're not there or can't be seen. It's like when Quicksilver from the X-Men moves at super speed and rearranges the path of bullets. You can't see him unless you watch that scene in extreme slow motion. But even though he can't be seen, he clearly changes the outcome of the event. He's unseen, but he's still the hero. And similarly, at that incredibly difficult moment in Yosef's life, when according to some commentators, his resolve had weakened and he was planning to sin with his master's wife, when suddenly the image of his father appeared to him. And he was so close with his father that he couldn't bear to let him down. So it strengthened his resolve and he ran out of the room. His father saved the day even though he wasn't in the room, he wasn't even in the country. So how do we get to that level? Well, we can mentor or teach or act as role models for students or friends or our own children. You can't imagine how far-reaching our merits can be when our students or our children make the right decision based on lessons that they've learned from us, even when we're not around, particularly when we're not around. Now you'll say, I can't teach, I don't know enough, but I disagree. Because no matter how modest your connection is to Judaism, I guarantee you that there's at least one person who has an even weaker connection, and you can be a role model for that person. And simultaneously, you can find a mentor. You can find someone who's a little bit better than you in a particular area, perhaps an area in which you struggle. Don't find someone who's many, many levels above, because then you may not be able to relate. You may learn from that person, but that may not be the person that you need to draw on when you're in that difficult situation. You may need to draw on the person to whom you can relate, but who's a little bit better than you in that area. So at the same time, you can have a situation wherein your student or your friend or your child makes the right decision, even though you're not around, based on lessons that they've learned from you. And you, elsewhere, make the right decision based on lessons that you've internalized from your mentor. The three of you then get connected into this incredible, invisible, magnetic bond. You can't see it, but it's there, and it's strong.